So, I want to say this first. This is not a video to try and be harsh or to crap all over secular talk. Um, I just want to give some nuance, I guess you could say, to a video that Kyle Kulinski uploaded earlier today. Because he certainly made some very good points in the video. However, I think he's missing a bigger picture on a particular subject. So he made a video covering where, in the title, it said, majority of Americans support burning down a police station. Now, before he talked about that particular poll, he brought up a poll where majority of polled Americans said that they supported getting the military to come in and quell down the riots and the looting, and to kind of restore order, right? And then he brought up how they also, a majority, supported burning down a police station. And he said that that absolutely floored him, and that he couldn't understand why a majority would support ending the protests, yet another majority would also support burning down a police station. These two things don't exactly line up. Well, does it or does it not? See, I said from the get-go, the problem that a lot of people on the outside looking in are going to have with this whole issue is that they understand what you're upset about. They know what you want to change, but it doesn't look like your protests that have turned into riots are targeting the problem you're complaining about. Sure, you're saying you're sending a message that we want that problem to be fixed, but you're not taking it straight to the source of the problem. The source of the problem being the politicians who pass the laws that allow you to be profiled, like the crime bill, and the cops who, try to be super cop. Try to be that Steven Seagal. Okay, the Jean-Claude Van Damme. The action, packed cop on the street. Not just the person that they're to protect and serve, but they're out there living their own action movie, and they're just thirsting for a battle. And God knows I respect the troops and veterans, but even I've met people. Let's examine how many former military members go on to become members of the police force. And I can tell you right now, I have met many war-hungry people who just love to get in conflict. I don't exactly know what it is, but I've literally had, former service members tell me that the whole reason they enlisted was to go fight in the war zone, and when they didn't get deployed to one, they were let down. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, huh? It sounds kind of, bass backwards to me. I would be happy I didn't have to go to the war zone. I mean, sure, you joined to serve your country, but war zone is the risk of death more so than anything. You're happy, you're sad you didn't get deployed to one. I can't understand that mind frame. I simply just can't understand that mindset at all. But what is Kyle missing? Well, for one, I don't know the specifics on who was polled in these polls that he cited, but it kind of stands to reason to me that if you're asking what the opinion is about the protesters and the rioters, you're going to ask folks who are not participating in it. You want the unbiased opinion, right? You want the people from the outside looking in, right? Now, if you're polling, of course, everyone, you would poll them as well. But certainly everyone in the country was not polled here. I know I certainly wasn't. If you were, I'd love to hear from you. Okay? So, I'm imagining they're probably polling the people not actually on the street. Now, if you're asking people from the outside looking in, then who are you going to be talking to? A good chunk of them, if they were truly that pissed about what went on, and I'm not saying they're not upset. I'm sure a lot of people do feel that a great injustice was done and there was a tragedy and a murder committed, basically. But they're not up in arms to the point that they went to the streets. They're mad. They're not furious to the point they're ready to riot. Or even really get out and hold the picket sign. Okay? So they're upset. And so he pointed out that the majority of the country felt that what is going on is justified, like that the anger is justified. Yes, because they know there's a problem. And then he said that the majority of the country also felt that it was right to burn down a police station. Yes, but what he couldn't make sense of was why a majority also felt that the military should be called in to stop it. Well, if you supported this, why do you want it stopped? Because, again, these people from the outside looking in, a lot of them, from the sound of this poll, I don't think it's because they're that conflicted. I think it's because they're seeing what I've seen from this. That's what it sounds like. To me, that says they understand that it was crooked cops who let power go to their heads. Okay? That's the problem. And I would also venture to go out and say they also understand that the government is a big part of agitating that problem with the way they have made us a police state. So it sounds like the people that were polled here understand that, and that's why they say, yeah, I understand, because there was a tragedy here. So, it was the cops burning down the police station. I could, understand that. Them doing it was justified. Okay? Same thing I said. And so he doesn't understand why they want the military to come in and stop what's going on if they believe in that. Because there's a difference, and I've been hammering this. I guess at this point I must be beating a dead horse. They understand the difference between the police who commit police brutality and a guy working at a retail store making money for whatever, or someone who tried to start a store and that being burned down. And now you've got the people who give the defense and say, oh, well, the insurance companies are going to pay for this, they're going to pay for that. Let me let you in on a little secret. I'm not an insurance salesperson. But I've got one thing I have to say to this crowd out there that believes, destroy whatever you want. The workers who are out of work can go file for unemployment, and the stores who are burned to the ground, don't bitch. Insurance is going to pay for it. You think that insurance is going to fork out money and we're all said and done, right? You don't understand how insurance works. If you really think that it is that simple, you don't understand simple economics. You don't understand how insurance works. And by no means am I an expert, but I will be your professor today, and I will educate you on a thing or two. Insurance will, of course, if fire, damage, or whatever, because remember, insurance companies are slippery, first of all, and they will try to find a way to not cover something if they possibly can. So we will skip that and we will go straight to play devil's advocate and say, yes, you got insurance money to rebuild your store. You've got the money. Why do you think that when auto wrecks, vehicular wrecks, and bad vehicular wrecks, that means ones where serious injury are done, or death was caused from auto accident, why do you think that when that number goes up, insurance premiums go up? Why do you think that if you're, and I don't know if this is across the nation, but it certainly is South Carolina, if you are under 25, you pay a lot more for your car insurance than you would if you were over 25? Because the statistics show that if you're below the age of 25, you are far more likely to have an accident. Why? Because you're young, you're showing off, you're not paying attention, you probably got your buddies in the car, and you're talking away, and then bam, you run up somebody's ass. Also, the insurance goes up if you drive sports cars. Why? Because people get in a sports car and want to show off. Bob and weave in and out of traffic because they can go nice and fast. And it causes an accident. Point being, when the insurance companies believe you're a higher risk or a higher liability, they raise your premiums. So you think that they're just going to hand money out to these towns in the inner cities. Keep that in mind. I mean, yeah, Atlanta's not necessarily an inner city per se, but some of these smaller communities are. Some of these smaller communities certainly are. Now, let's just be completely honest. This isn't racist. This isn't racial. This is just a fact. You don't have to agree with it. It's a fact. Why do you think it is that a lot of insurance rates are up in inner cities? Because there's more of a police presence. There's more arrests made. Again, you can talk about the reasons why those areas are so targeted. But insurance companies already look at these inner cities as the slums. That's where you find a lot of drugs. That's where you have a lot of crime. Even though there could be some rich suburban community where there's a group full of white college kids doing drugs, popping pills, smoking pot, it's not going to be viewed the same way. That's just a college frat party. If a group of people of color or black people had a house full of marijuana and the police raided them, it'd be a lot different than if the police showed up to the college frat party. Let's just be honest. Somebody would be facing federal charges, and I highly doubt that's the college frat kids. So the insurance communities already frown upon these inner cities. So when you loot these stores and burn them to the ground, your concept that no insurance is just going to pay for it and no one's going to financially suffer, it'll all come out in the wash. Bullshit. Those stores might get rebuilt, and I guarantee you, number one, the stores that get rebuilt, their insurance premiums to cover their property is going to go through the roof. But guess what? It doesn't end there. If there's stores that are still left standing after that, what do you think's going to happen to them? They're within an area where the insurance communities or companies are now going to say, your community is more dangerous and more of a risk. You have to pay more for coverage because we are anticipating potentially, if the wrong thing happens, having to pay out a lot of money to cover your building and potentially rebuild it. So your premiums go up. Now, if some of these stores don't own the property, they just lease, then you've got to understand this. The store like O'Reilly's, if they didn't own that building, or if someone simply was leasing out a spot in a strip mall, they may not own the property. It's then the property owner who has to rebuild it. But when he has to pay those higher insurance premiums, what do you think, even if the store that was in there, let's say again, someone was renting that spot, they may not be paying that higher insurance premium, but they will because the guy who owns the strip mall, he has to pay it, and so he's going to raise rent. He's going to raise his rent and his overhead fee because he's having to pay more price for insurance, spend more money to insure his property because the insurance company has now said, you're a very big risk and we're afraid to cover you. So you got to pay more money. That's how it works, folks. If you don't realize that, you're talking about a subject you really don't understand very much. And even I'm not an expert on it, but I do know that much about insurance. So back to what I was getting at a minute ago. Kyle was surprised that people in the country are supportive of shutting these riots down because they understand it's not really attacking the problem and that it's actually hurting people who aren't part of the problem. It makes perfect sense to me. They would support these riots if they were actually targeting the people that were being complained about. The politicians passing the crooked bills that lead to profiling, lead to stop and frisk, lead to a war on drugs. If they were targeting the problems at the root, people have clearly shown they would be supportive of it. But when you hit the streets and target the people that were not involved just because you're pissed, it looks like you're an angry mob on a mission, but you're not really clear on how to go about your mission. And then people start to say, okay, I understand it. You're pissed. You want change. I agree with you. You should have change, but I don't like what you're doing and this needs to stop. And that's exactly what you get. So it's really no surprise to me. So, again, not trying to trash the video, but I want to give that nuance there. People need to understand. This country would support a revolution if it was done the right way, and that's the key.